It looks like we have all our members are present. And the first item is a roll call, which we have. And the next item is approval of the minutes for July 21st, 2020 and August 5th, 2020. I would entertain a motion. Member Robustelli, second. Member Beard. Any questions or discussion on any of that? If not, we're ready to vote. Roll call vote. We'll vote.
Thank you. Member Metzger.
Yes.
Member Erickson.
Yes.
Member Woolrath.
Yes.
Member Robustelli.
Yes.
Member Beard.
Yes.
Member Barnett.
Yes.
And Chairman Solner.
Yes.
Carries.
First item is 4A1 under Michelle Anderson, County Auditor. She has no items for action. I do believe I copied you all along. I sent her an invitation, hoping maybe her situation had changed. I got no response. Any questions on anything from her? Okay, we will move on then to 4B1. I'm sorry, 4B1. Becky McLean, County Treasurer. She has no action items except for the monthly financial reports. And I believe we got those all sent to us, and she is here. Great. All right. First, let's get a motion and a second to place those reports on file. Someone will make that motion. Woolrath, second Barnett. All right. Ms. McNeil, would you like to lead off on your report?
Sure. Okay, so the first report is the trending tax revenue for the month of August, and sales tax. Unfortunately, that's where we're experiencing the drop right now. It's sales tax. August of 19, we were at 461,000, and August of 20, we're at 390,000. So our sales tax is down about 15.4%. Our revenue sales tax, that's what we have out in the county, it is down by 1.6%. We did have a nice increase in local use. Cannabis is 100% because we didn't have a distribution last year, and income tax and PPRT. Local use, income tax, and PPRT, the reason why those were up so high is because our distributions for the month of May were down significantly. That was probably due in part to the extended filing date for income taxes. So that filing date was extended to July. Those distributions come to us here in the month of August. So the income tax in particular up 100%, 263,000 in August of 2020 compared to August of 2019 at 130,000. And that PPRT 175,000 compared to 29,000. But again, that goes back to May where we're picking up some of that due to that deferral. Overall, for the month of August, our receipts 952,000 compared to 723,000 in 2019. The year-to-date comparison, we are still a little bit below where we were in 2019. We are at 6,854,948, and our 2019 vouchers were 7,013,314. So it's a difference of 158,000 right now. When we look at budget right now, we would like to be around 6,774,772. We're actually in a positive position on budget. We're at 6,854,948. So we're a little bit over budget right now, and that's a pretty good position to be in. The shared sales tax, you can see what happened there for the month of August. It continues to be below where the sales tax was in 2019. The shared sales tax was 266,000 between Bloomington and Town of Normal, compared to 333,000 in 2019. So your year-to-date receipts for your shared sales tax are $2,298,298 compared to $2,496,194. So about 197,000 below where we were accumulated through 2019. The fund itself has equity of $11,564,792. The fund is doing very good. The next category is your motor fuel tax, and your motor fuel tax for the month of July again came in below where we typically are. I reached out to the highway department and they said that that is the recalculation that IDOT was doing, and that carried over into the month of August. So we have on our regular county motor fuel tax, $75,436 and $58,156. And then on our township, we have $133 and $95. So in total, we're doing very good. And that renewal fund has given the county almost $1.7 million of additional tax revenue there. Property tax is coming in right now. We are about 2 weeks out from the second installment due date. We went ahead and made a distribution at the end of August, like we normally do, just to stay on track. Our distributions, we're releasing more, but yet they're a little bit less as we're going along because the collections are just coming in, not like they normally do right now. But that's also because of that second installment due date being pushed back 2 weeks. So the McLean County's distributions, $21,902,000, and that has about 60.2% of our levy in. Any questions?
Member Beard?
Thank you. Would you be able to comment? There was a story this a couple of weeks ago from one of the school districts, and they specifically referenced the delay in property tax, the action that we had taken that was allowing a deferment, as a cause of a structural deficit, which kind of hit me as being a little off. Would you be able to not to necessarily contradict them, but would you be able to comment on how the disbursements are to school districts, and then your assessment of where we're at overall? How many people are at the end of the year? Do we anticipate, are we behind or ahead in terms of, are we anticipating more people just not paying their property taxes, or just the money's coming but just a little later? Thank you.
It's coming a little bit later. The school districts, they have a fiscal year end date of June 30th. So our first installment due date was on June 17th. And so normally by the end of June, by the end of their fiscal year, we've got the entire first installment and part of the second installment even in and distributed to them. So this year, the school districts, they didn't get as much distributed to them before June 30th. But then we turned around and we released that distribution to them. I think it was the first week of July. So yes, everything is kind of off about 2 weeks, but we're still moving along. Our delinquency numbers are in line with where they typically are at this point in time. I don't have any concerns about that right now. The only concern I have right now is what is coming out of Springfield, and whether or not we are going to be able to have a tax sale in the month of November. As of right now, that's kind of up in the air, and we are, I'm working with the Assistant State's Attorney to interpret some of this language that's coming out of Springfield from the governor's orders. But it's possible that we won't be able to have that tax sale here in 2020. And that's going to be very, very unusual. We've never, ever been in that position before. We have no control over it. And we'll communicate that out to our taxing bodies as we know exactly what's going to happen. But as of right now, I'm not very comfortable going to tax sale during the month of November, because I think the intent of this executive order was to give taxpayers additional time and additional relief. Now, that's a double-edged sword because it will impact some of our taxing bodies where they stand at the end of the year. It would impact McLean County. It would be a small percentage, but it still will impact McLean County. It will impact everybody. So that's a long answer.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions? Member Barnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this isn't specifically for Treasurer McNeil. This is sort of a general question. If any committee member or the administrator knows the answer to this. I know we are receiving more money in motor fuel tax than we normally do because of the bump we received last year with the increased fuel tax. But I mean, from what we're looking at in the report, I mean, receipts are down a little bit from where we normally expected because of COVID and folks just haven't been driving. Is there any concern from the highway department being able to complete projects this year because of any decreased funds that have come in due to a lack of driving?
They have not expressed that to me. I don't know if they've expressed that to their committee. But you know, we notify them when these payments come in. As soon as we know what those amounts are, we notify them. And like I said earlier, they indicated that they knew this adjustment was coming and they expected it to be in July and August. So hopefully then they'll turn around. You know, a lot of these tax payments, as you know from previous experience, we're really at the mercy of the state of Illinois as far as how they calculate these and whether or not they calculate them correctly. And if they don't calculate them correctly, we all know that they go back and they recoup anything they've distributed in excess of what they should have. So, I would expect, to reach out to the highway department and ask that question. When is their transportation
They already
meeting?
met.
They've already met? Okay.
No, haven't
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday. Did they mention anything about?
Not that I
Okay.
recall.
All right.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Member Erickson?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm just playing with my pen.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Using my-
I was going to comment, I jotted down our numbers from last month compared to this month. And they are all, although the first two are still down, they all are better than they were last month. So hopefully it's a trend in the right way.
Well, yeah, it's that April filing date that it affected us. And so that extension to July, we're making up a little bit of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, you may go on with the next report.
So the next report is the investment report. And, unfortunately, this past month, there just really wasn't a lot of positive news out there as far as rates go. We did cash out a couple CDs because they were coming in at like 0.2. And so we just really are kind of holding steady right now. The property tax revenue is coming in. Obviously, we're staying liquid. The biggest chunk of money that we have is with the Illinois funds. And the Illinois funds, they make that very, very attractive, the investment pool there for us. So.
Member Barnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Treasurer McNeil, when if we're not receiving a good rate for a CD and we have to cash it out, like you said, we just put that money and let it sit in the money market for a while, or what happens to those funds
when I cash out a CD, what I do is we deposit that into the operating account, and then that week, whatever goes out of the county for payroll or accounts payable, that money is part of that. So that means that's less money that we're transferring over from the money markets.
Oh, okay, great.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, next page.
The next report you have is the Blue Cross Blue Shield, our self-insured plan, and our expenses for 2020 are currently at $3,942,000 through the month of July, through the month of August. And through the month of August in 2019, we were at $4,143,000. So fortunately for this fund, our health insurance, our health costs are down by about $200,000. So, and that's the biggest thing I have to report there, so.
Any questions on that page? Okay, next report.
And then we have the nursing home. The nursing home financials are through the month of July. The nursing home had their primary sources of revenue. They had a total of $531,756 for the month of July. That's doing pretty good, pretty average. The expenses were $514,266. So our revenue actually exceeded our expenses by $21,000 for the month of July. Overall, accumulated, the nursing home has accumulated revenue through July of $4,430,000 and expenses of $4,620,000. So more than halfway through the fiscal year, we have a deficit of $189,809, which is much, much better than where we were a year ago. The cash, we started out the year with $1,056,998 in cash, and we end July with $1,396,572 in cash. So our cash has increased. I'm sorry, I skipped the line ahead of it, which was the receivable. Part of the reason why this cash has gone up is because the receivables have gone down. The receivable started out at $3,364,000 in 2020, and through the month of July, we sit at $3,030,976. So that receivable balance is down over $300,000 since the beginning of the year. And then at the very end, the fund equity, we started the year at $3,838,000, and we end in July at $3,648,000. So I can tell you that when I come in next month for the month of August, the nursing home and the county, we're going to have 3 pay periods hit as far as expenses go. So it's just going to be one of those months where expenses are certainly going to exceed revenue. So,
Any questions? All right, well, we have a motion and a second to place these reports on file. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Mr. Beard?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McNeil, for the report. As always, great information. This is a question, it may be for you, it may be for our administrator. As we look around, cities, entities are starting to provide assessments of the impact of COVID to revenues. And what I'm seeing here is a slight impact, but not necessarily a significant impact. How would you, or how would perhaps our administrator be able to summarize where we think we're at in terms of tax? One, you have what's coming in from the state that in some ways is out of our control, but how would you assess what we're thinking and what we're looking at in terms of tax revenue? Is it, slightly down, but nothing crazy, flat, or down enough that there are going to be decisions to make as we get into the budget?
well, on this report, I went over the year-to-date tax revenue. Okay, the year-to-date tax revenue is $6,854,000 compared to $7,013,000 a year ago. So here during the month of August, we really made up some of that revenue that we lost, and we were really concerned about back in May. And as far as the state of Illinois paying the county, our receivables are actually, I'm very surprised, but our receivables, we're getting payments as we would expect to get them. We don't have anything that's significantly behind. You have just a couple programs where there's some delays, but like, for example, probation salary reimbursements, we are getting those, and we actually were notified by AOIC of additional allocations being made to the county where the county could go back and claim from prior months. So that's great news for McLean County. Is there anything I'm going to add?
I mean, I guess Member Beard wanted also sort of how does that affect then the budget work? that county administration is doing with department heads. And certainly we do see a bit of reduction in our revenues, but we've also tried to keep expenses down. We did that so strategically at the beginning of the pandemic. Now, that doesn't mean that we also aren't really pressing our departments to look at what is truly necessary. We are making hard decisions during this budget time so that we can bring county board a balanced budget. And I'd have to say that we're still knee deep in it right now as we speak. And I know that even just this morning, I went to one department head and said, what more can you give? Which is to say, what more would you not ask for? Because we are having a challenge making it balanced. That's not unlike any year, but I think this year, Ms. McNeil has done well to tell you that it isn't as bad as we thought. But we will say that it is lower probably than last year, and so we're making those adjustments. So I think time will tell. I think everyone, thank you department heads who are listening and those who are not. You are working so hard to take on county administration's requests in this regard. And we're appreciative of Treasurer McNeil keeping track of all of this for us. Whereas we thought maybe we'd be at a 15% loss when we started in this pandemic and we projected that to you, we do not think it's that high, but we do think that we're going to have to make some adjustments.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Woolrab?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think on that note, I think it would be helpful during our budget process as we look forward into the next year and whether things improve or they sort of stay the same, or even just to tuck back in our minds for the following year, what purchases have been postponed, what repairs have been put off, what kind of things are we not doing this year, we're projecting not to do next year, so we all of us sort of have a clear idea of where we stand and we can plan in the future for catching up.
Okay, I think noted. All right. Okay, any other questions? Member Barnett?
I was just going to say, addressing Member Woolrab's comment, tomorrow night at Property Committee, we're going to dive through the 2020 capital improvement plan and talk about some of those exact things that you brought up. So if you'd like to learn more, feel free to tune in.
All right. Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second to place these reports on file. We're ready to vote. Roll call vote. Chairman will vote.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Erickson,
Yes.
Member Woolrab,
Yes.
Member Robustelli,
Yes.
Member Beard,
Yes.
Member Barnett,
Yes.
Chairman Soldner.
Yes. All right. Any other questions for our treasurer? Thank you very much. Next item 4C1, that's County Clerk Kathy Michael. She is not with us today. She did have reports that she sent on, and she actually sent me an email to myself and to Vice Chairman Metzger, and I'm going to ask Ms. Rodriguez to read it. It's kind of an update on what's going on with the election.
I can do that. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Chairman Soldner. Thank you, membership. I'm going to read this email that Kathy Michael, our county clerk, addressed to Chairman Soldner and Vice Chair person Metzger. It says, if it's helpful, feel free to distribute this at finance tonight, but I am not requesting this be done, knowing how busy you all are. Just wanted to give the chair and vice chair an update. I have nothing on the agenda and cannot attend tonight due to a commitment. Next week, our office will have a press release with election dates, drop boxes, and those locations around the county, locations, dates, times, and more. As of this morning, we have processed nearly 9,000 vote by mail application requests. Our record previously was in March, when we had approximately 1,500 requests. Ballots will be ready for mailing on September 24th by law. Early voting begins that day, as well as at the Grossinger Motors Arena. All early voting locations and dates and times are posted on our website. We currently have all election judge positions filled, and we have a wait list. We continue receiving applications daily from residents wishing to be election judges. As we have always done, our office follows and will continue to follow the Illinois Department of Public Health and county recommendations. Posted on our Facebook page and on our website are the latest updated IDPH recommendations and requirements regarding COVID-19 procedures for election authorities for the November 3rd election. Our office plan is identical to the IDPH recommendations and requirements, which will be reviewed with each confirmed election judge, polling place managers, and other poll workers before early voting begins, as well as on election day. This will also be addressed next week in our press release. Anyone with questions, please call, email, or stop in. And please wear a mask and practice 6 feet distancing and stand at the counter in front of one of our plastic shields. Per the notices on our doors, there is one at the entrance door and one at the exit door. We are allowing 5 customers or visitors in the office 6 feet apart. So if you feel you need to make an appointment ahead of time, please call or email. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Again, it sounds like it's a busy time and it will only get busier from now till November 3rd. And again, you're always welcome to email or call our office or stop in. With that, I guess we are ready to move on then with item D, Marshall Thompson from the Animal Control Department. She has no items for action. She does have monthly and general reports, and I believe she is on the tiles with us. So first, I guess I'd like to ask her, have you got anything specific you want to mention in your reports?
Good evening. How's everyone?
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Everything's going really well. I have nothing to add regarding the report.
Okay. One question I had, and I didn't look at your reports really close, but has it been an unusual summer at animal control like it has been in the rest of the world, or has it been pretty much a normal summer period?
I think everything else with the normal animal activity has been the same. We have noticed a slight decrease in animal intake numbers, and we're doing adoptions and reclaims by appointment, so everything's going really well with that, so we can make sure that we're in compliance with all of the social distancing. I did have something fun to report. Jesse Quinn with week 25 created something called the Fur Cast, and our animals will be part of the group of the local shelters in the area that will get to sponsor and show some of our featured pets on the Fur Cast for week 25 with Jesse Quinn.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Marshall? Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing your report again next month.
All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Next, we have Camille Rodriguez, County Administrator. She has several items for action. But would you like to do Mr. Hoban first?
Yes, Chairman Soldner, I would like to make the humble request that our Economic Development Council Executive Director, Patrick Hoban, provide his update under 2A ahead of all of the action items, as he so graciously agreed to join us this evening, and I see him on the screen. So if I may make that request.
Any objections? All right, go right ahead.
Thank you, Patrick. I know that you and I talked about Well, first of all, I thank you for all of the written reports that you provided, and I have shared with the committee on your behalf. But we talked about how great it would be for you to visit in person, of course, virtually, obviously, and give us an update. So I'll give the floor to you at this point so you can update the Finance Committee.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep, good, awesome. So we just approved our first loan to Moraine View. We took the check out to them and actually took a kayak out for the afternoon. So awesome spot if you guys haven't been out there yet. Good burgers too. But they're the only ones that have actually applied so far. Most people we've talked to have all done PPP, but because PPP has recently ran out, the banks have been contacting us and the local lenders trying to get a breakdown on how that 20% will work. So if the feds continue to be in gridlock, which I'm not sure when they're going to agree on what the next one's going to come out as. We were told there's supposed to be a skinny package, which is not going to be the full refunding of everything. But if that continues, I think we're going to see an uptick in our loans, because right now people are still going to go after those federal dollars when they're available, just because they're forgivables and ours are not. But yeah, right now we've had, I think it was close to 13 or 14 interested. Our marketing outreach that we did has hit 70,000 on Facebook. So those ads are actually getting a lot of traction. We have a lot of visitors getting calls for it, but no one has actually completed applications. So until that time, we're kind of in a holding pattern. We did partner with the chamber during our outreach for the survey, and we called every business in our database. So we had our board members, local volunteers, the Chamber of Commerce, and we reached out to everyone that we had in the county to let them know about the resources available. So I think that we've done what we could outreach-wise, and as long as you guys, I know I've had a lot of the county board members too refer people to us. It's just a matter of getting them to follow through and complete the applications to move forward. And also, as I think that you guys were told in the reports, we do have a private donor. So the first dollars we're lending out are coming from the private donor, and then we will access the public dollars. But we were very thankful. They wanted to remain anonymous, but very thankful that they donated dollars as well.
All right.
And then also the big grants that we got awarded. Right now they lended out, I think, I can't remember how much of it was. It wasn't the whole thing. 46 million out of 636 million. So when the governor was in town to announce that, their staff had told us there's going to be another round of big grants coming. So when those get out there, we'll make sure to let everybody know that those are available too, because as we know, grants are better than loans. But those are going to take care of some of those that got missed through the PPP. And we're working closely with DCO. So when those do come out, we'll make sure that everybody is aware so we can bring more dollars back to McLean County.
All right. Member Robustelli, you have a question?
Yeah. So Patrick, thanks for that update. For the last few months, I had been requesting sort of thinking proactively about not just what we've been doing, but kind of what we will need to be thinking about going into the fall and into the winter. And I'm increasingly growing concerned, specifically around the sectors that are getting hit the hardest. The retail sector and restaurants in particular, which employ a lot of people, that we're entering into a phase that I don't think is being talked enough about locally and regionally and nationally. And that is, right now, restaurants are operating under rules that allow them to use an outside patio plus 25% of their occupancy. In a matter of weeks, that's going to end. They're not going to have the outside expansive option because it's going to get cold. And on top of that, locally, we're seeing the virus spreading exponentially. And it's more likely than not that the governor or some agency is going to come in and further add restrictions. So I think for me right now, I wish that we had something that we can be thinking about, whether it's grants, whatever it is. I think what you've heard from this committee in the past is we want to do what we can to protect jobs and protect industry and maybe even solve additional problems. I've seen in other places, for example, that restaurants have been utilized for food insecurity while also maintaining jobs and maintaining the restaurants. But I think the hard reality here is local restaurants, local businesses are going to shut down if we don't do some things. And I think for us to be sitting on these kinds of resources and have been asking for sort of proactive programs that give you tools that you could launch under certain conditions, I really hope we can move on them. I think we need those proposals before us. I think we need to think more, I hate to say it, but more doom and gloom with regard to sectors of our local economy before it's too late. It is too late in 3 months from now, 4 months from now, for us to be reacting to what's happening. We need some kind of program that can buy some time, given what we know right now, which are the conditions for a lot of businesses are not good. We're not going into, they're going to lose capacity, which is going to mean dollars, and they may even be further restricted given the exponential growth and the inability to control the spread and mitigate it locally. So I know I'm a broken record, but I wanted to expand a little on it because I'm concerned. I'm very concerned, particularly around that sector. And I hoped that this meeting or sometime very soon, you'll have some options for us to consider that may be completely outside of what we've ever considered before. Because I think we need to be thinking a little bit bigger than we are right now in terms of doing what we can to help support these businesses.
Well, when we designed the program, it was based off of recommendations that we had, and we'd also said that at any point we can tweak it. So like these are rules that anytime if you guys have suggestions and we get everybody on board to change, it's your money. So it's really like, how do you want us to administer it?
All right. Member Metzger, you have a question?
First of all, it's taxpayer money. So let's just go there. So I don't ever want to say it's our money because it is not. And I'm wondering with Member Robustelli, are you suggesting that we do grants and just give this away? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think we should be prepared if we want to keep small businesses open during the winter months. If COVID continues to spread like it is, and the federal government has completely failed to do its job, yeah, I think we're going to need to think about this. Or the alternative is they will shut down. The values of those buildings will dramatically decline. Jobs will be completely gone. Yeah, I mean, if the choice is don't lend any money because it's not working. We had one application so far in this program. So, I mean, this is.
But that doesn't mean just because there's one application, there's been other monies, as Mr. Hobart has been talking about. So I'm not sure. I don't disagree that we need to help people. I'm just I'm kind of confused. So.
I mean, I agree. I think there's a disagreement. I don't think it's confusion. I think.
No, I'm confused as to what you want him to do, because I don't think he knows what you want him to do, and I don't know what you want him to do.
Well, I'll let him speak for himself.
Well, it sounds to me like there could be some options to tweak the current programs. But when we did bring it up, we said we could tweak the programs, but also the goal was to use federal dollars first. And federal dollars have been available until the end of last month, like they just ran out. And so now the banks are following up and saying, okay, we really need to explain these programs because there's more interest. So we could find that we could get a big swing and get more use out of the programs, or the feds might add more dollars and allow people to get 2 PPP loans. And if that happens, again, they're not going to use our loans if there are grant dollars available, if it could be forgiven. So it really depends on how you want to use the funds. If it's really a safety net for last out, I mean, it's doing what it's supposed to do. So if you want to exhaust all other resources first, that's what's been going on.
All right, Member Wolrab?
Yes, so I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Member Robustelli, but you were talking about proactivity for the next several months. And, I think asking us, everyone, to put on our thinking caps about this. And I think I have also heard about the restaurants that are working with food insecurity. And one thought I have about the money that's sitting there in our account is, we may be able to grant or lend, maybe grant as seed money for businesses to make changes that they need to make so that they can survive the next, 6 months or whatever it is, in the foreseeable future. This is saying if Congress, and it looks at this point, at least, that Congress isn't going to come up with something, and businesses at this point, I'm imagining they're so strapped they can't really withstand more than another month with very little revenue coming in. So, I guess what I would ask Mr. Hoban to do is be to come to us with suggestions that you might have research or may know about by talking to other areas, other businesses, or other communities, and come forward with suggestions that seem to fit the need that we can see is coming down the pike here.
Member
Okay.
Erickson?
Yeah,
Sorry.
we can do that.
Okay, Member Erickson.
I respectfully disagree. The federal government hasn't acted, but I do concur with the idea that it's kind of silly to have a surplus that sits there and we don't do anything with it. That just doesn't make any sense to me. We've got like, I believe it was 600,000 in this program, but I could be off a little bit. You talk about a couple of dollars here and a couple of dollars there, and you're talking about real money. But there was, I think it was 600,000. And if there was just a way that maybe we could target more of the restaurants or target some of these incomes. I heard you say, Patrick, that we first tried to encourage people to use the federal funds first. And I don't disagree with that, but now we're kind of past that. And obviously to get grants, they could, but if there were any way to come up with a program to get this 600,000 out there. I actually don't have any problem with getting rid of 600,000 that just sits there and does nothing, especially when you're in the circumstances you're in. But if you can think of something, I think I don't, as I always come to you and say, well, I don't have the answer. Maybe you have the answer. And if you don't have the answer, you can come up with an idea what the answer might be. But and if there's some way to get that 600, I think there's a consensus here is that we were hoping for more in May than just one loan. I think that's what we were hoping for, and we were kind of hoping that more people would utilize it. So if there is a path to get there, I would appreciate if you would, I don't know what, come up with something. So we can, because I don't think the concern should be, well, we don't want to take that money. The concern should be, how on God's green earth do we get rid of it? How in the world do we spend it? Because it's $600,000 that's sitting there during this time, and we really need to find a way to get that to needy businesses that could use it. So,
Member Barnett.
I could not agree more with members Robustelli and member Erickson. If you look at specifically the Metro East area of the state, there have been further restrictions put into that part of the state due to the rise in positivity rates with COVID. And look, and whether you agree with how those rates are measured or how any of those things look, the fact of the matter is that the state is putting restrictions in place, and we have to adapt and work around that. Right now, in the Metro East area, with the restrictions that are in place, I think this went into effect yesterday, there is 0 indoor service at bars. There is 0 indoor service at restaurants. All of that seating is outside at bars and restaurants. And when it's November, if we have further restrictions in place in this area, which looking at our rise in numbers, I don't think is completely outside of the realm of possibility, you're going to have bars and restaurants that can't function unless they have outdoor seating. And when November is here, or December, or the other winter months, that's just not going to be feasible. So I fully support us having some sort of a plan in place, a phase 2 of what we've already done maybe, that maybe is on the shelf, and as soon as we need to, hey, it's ready to go and we can activate it and pull it off and begin turning some of those dollars that originally were targeted for loans into outright grants, specifically for locally owned businesses. I mean, we can't be giving any of this money out to Olive Garden or someplace like that, right? But if there's a small local restaurant, whether it's in Bloomington Normal or in Cooksville or wherever it might be within the county, who could use funds when things start to get bad, which they very well may, I think we need to be prepared and ready to activate that when it happens.
Mr. Hoban, could you answer, I'm sorry, could you answer the businesses that have applied or at least have talked to you? What is their hesitation? Can you give us some insight into what reasoning is that they don't want to use our loan program?
I think it's just the fact that it's a loan. I mean, if you have an opportunity to get a PPP loan that's at 1%, ours is the same rate, 1%, and then you can get 75% of that back for free and not pay it back, you're going to take that all day. Where ours, you have to pay back. So I think what I'm looking for is if there's a consensus to turn them in grants, like if you want to get rid of the money, you turn around and say it's a grant, it's going to disappear. So I need to have some kind of a direction if you're talking $600,000. And I also don't know if you can distinguish between a local business and a chain legally because they all pay taxes. So I'd have to check with somebody on that, because essentially you're asking Olive Garden to pay taxes and then give it to the competition, even though it's locally owned. So I don't know if we can make that distinction or not.
I'm okay with that.
Member Metzger?
I guess my concern is not, I mean, I just needed to understand what we wanted to do. And I'm okay with if we wanted to grant the money to truly grant the money. If that's, I mean, it's 600,000, it's not going to go a long ways, but it's better than nothing. My concern is that communities like Carlock, Cooksville, Anchor doesn't, Colfax, they rely on the income, the taxes. They don't get, their property tax doesn't keep them afloat. It's the taxes that are generated by businesses. And if all this money ends up in Bloomington, it's not going to help McLean County. It's going to help Bloomington. That's a concern I have.
Member Beard?
Thank you. A lot of great points, just giving my 2 cents. I think, Mr. Hoban, I think as you explained a couple of months ago, it made sense why the PPP was going first and then this would be used later. So I don't have specific concerns that there's only been one so far and there's interest. So I would not necessarily be in favor of turning it into a grant at this point in time. But I know, when Member Woolrab and I were talking back and forth back in the spring about this program, I think we contemplated the idea of making it a grant eventually. So I think that should be potentially ready to go as we move forward, if that becomes necessary. Because I think as Member Robustelli and Erickson pointed out, we don't want to be at the end of this and have this money be unused and have a lot of businesses, whether they be rural or in Bloomington Normal or wherever, who could have used it and didn't have access to it. The other the other 2 comments I would say is, one, I think we absolutely have to be working with Bloomington and Normal and other towns on this. We don't want to be competing against each other. We want to be, streamlined and uniform. And then my other comment is we want to try to make this go as long as, as far as possible, cast as wide a net as possible. At the end of the day, $600,000 or $1 million or whatever it is not going to keep 30 restaurants afloat if there's no commerce for a 4-month period. So we're not talking about a $20 or $30 million program. It is limited. So how can we cast it as wide a net as possible? And maybe that is helping businesses put in preventative measures so they can help keep comply with COVID requirements or something like that. Those are just my comments, and I would be in favor of the idea of converting it into a grant-like program or having some sort of a forgiveness program as the weather gets worse, and then as any federal or state programs start to really dry up and we see that need emerge. Thank you.
Member Robustelli?
So I appreciate Member Beard's comments and everyone's comments. I think they've been very instructive and helpful to this conversation. How the grant program is designed is up to us. That is precisely what I was asking for months, is just sort of thinking through what other things can we do to support small businesses who are grappling with how to respond to and survive this pandemic. And I think Member Walrath makes a great point. I mean, that's a very specific way. You know, a lot of businesses are having to pivot. They're having to change from a traditional sit-down restaurant to a takeout restaurant. Well, those are two different businesses, really. I mean, if your entire business is takeout, you might need certain software programs to make that easier, to make that work. Or you might need, there may be things that would allow you to make that transition, but you can't afford them because they cost $10,000 or $8,000. So I do think that there are innovative ways to look at this, either from a build capacity infrastructure way to adapt your business or to change it, or thinking about it in the more extreme, which is what other social related issues are we going to grapple with, like food insecurity. And we have restaurants that do that. And if they can maintain their employment, their employees, by providing meals, a certain number of meals to people in need, and that will help them keep them afloat in addition to their takeout business, that's a win for everybody. They get food, people get food in the marketplace, and they're able to keep their employees, and they're making enough money to stay afloat. This is not my idea. This is happening all over the country. Communities are doing this kind of thing. So I don't know what the right program is. I don't know what, I mean, I just think that there's a consensus that we do not want to be, you know, December 31st looking backwards and going, my goodness, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars that we could have leveraged to try to help businesses that want to be innovative and creative get through this. And we didn't think about doing that. And we have this tremendous need out in the community. The last thing I'm going to say, and I, you know, Member Metzger, I have the utmost respect for as a colleague. I find it very disappointing when somebody distinguishes McLean County residents from Bloomington residents. In Bloomington, if you have a Bloomington address, you are a McLean County resident. We all pay taxes to McLean County. We are McLean County residents. So there's that distinguishing feature, shouldn't matter. I do concede, and I think it's very important. In fact, I would think in the rural areas, this kind of program that we're talking about is more important than ever. And I mean, I grew up in a rural community. I was in a restaurant business in a rural community. My dad does not have the software to do takeout orders and become a fast food restaurant. That wasn't what he designed his business for. So he would need an investment. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I think would appeal to a rural business owner and a community member. So I wasn't making the point that this should all go in Bloomington. I think it should be spread out through McLean County, but I also will, I want to make note that Bloomington residents are McLean County residents, the same. There should not be any distinction in this conversation.
Member Metzger?
That wasn't my intent, and I apologize for that, Member Robustelli. I represent rural communities, and those rural communities rely more heavily to operate their village, and the only way they get their income is from restaurants, gas stations, those kinds of organizations. Bloomington can continue to pick up trash and can continue because they have other revenue. These small communities don't have that. That was the point I'm making. And I apologize if it, and I can see where I did kind of imply that maybe Bloomington wasn't, that's not my intent. My intent was that the rural communities rely more heavily on those businesses than property taxes. So thank you for allowing me that opportunity to clarify. I appreciate it.
So is there any any appetite to consider a special meeting of this committee? I hate to use that word because we're doing that a lot, but it seems like we're kind of going around in circles here, not getting a lot done. And we do have other items on our agenda. Is there anybody interested in doing that? Member Beard?
What would you think about just taking ideas, whether I don't know if we would be submitting them to Patrick or submitting them to you, but a lot of ideas were thrown out. A special committee seems like it would almost be a brainstorming session, but would it be possible to just throw out different ideas and different things we see as important? And then Mr. Hoban, I mean, you're in this day in and day out, so you may have some things may be able to do that, and whether we put it on the agenda next month. But I heard a lot, and in my mind, what I'm thinking is, hey, I want to get some of those ideas to the right people as we maybe transition to what a next stage looks like.
I would hope that we could have a new program ready to submit for next month. So we need to do our legwork before then. Patrick, I'm sure you would be amiable to accept emails or ideas. I think administration probably would like to have that also, though. If you could copy Patrick or copy Camille, whatever is more proper, to send your ideas, your opinion on the grant program, maybe what we're looking at as far as a maximum amount of money. I assume, Mr. Hoban, you speak with Charlie at the chamber. I mean, I would assume the Chamber of Commerce, those are the businesses, and they know what they need. They know that they need money for our fuel bills that are going to come up here or for whatever. So hopefully you're in contact with him to get some ideas. Does that sound like that meets with everyone's approval? Why don't we plan on that again? I wouldn't wait. We want to get something going here. So if we can get our ideas to him quick, sooner rather than later, I think it would be good. Member Metzger?
So we would want him to, with these ideas, consolidate those and bring a proposal to our finance committee meeting for October. Is that what we're asking? I guess I want to be very clear as to what we expect, what the deadline is and what we expect to happen.
I think that we've kind of gotten some heat over doing too much stand-up. I don't know whether this would be more than we could handle at a stand-up meeting, probably.
I am just going to say that I'm respectfully going to say, there is no way that Mr. Hoban and I can get a program proposal together before stand-up. I'm just being honest. And so I would humbly recommend that we set a deadline for submission of ideas to give Mr. Hoban and I enough time, not only to examine those and collaborate, but also to do an assessment of, I'm no expert, maybe Mr. Hoban is, in the other programs that are targeted towards urban areas like the CDBG grants. I want to make sure that we are covering the areas that are experiencing a deficiency perhaps in granting opportunities. And I think that that's an important thing to note, because Bloomington and Normal are considered urban areas, whereas McLean County proper is not. And I just would love that opportunity to sit down with Mr. Hoban and his staff once we receive your ideas, to make sure that our proposal covers all of those probabilities.
Well, this committee meets again in October, on the 7th of October. And I would assume you need a week or 10 days before that, maybe, to finalize a program.
Well, we have to also finalize a packet. So I think that that's part of it. We for the October 7th meeting, we have to have it out no later than October 5th at 4:30, which means my staff is likely to have it done by October 2nd, which means Mr. Hoban and I would need to probably collaborate during the week of September 21st. So therefore, I don't know if the membership is in agreement that probably 2 weeks from today would be a great final date to receive your ideas. Obviously, we could go a little farther than that, but that technically only gives Mr. Hoban and I the week of the 21st to work together before my staff and I have to put together a pack.
So September 16th would be 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Does that sound like that would work? Let's shoot for that. So get your suggestions, comments, ideas into Mr. Hoban and to administration by the 16th. And later on tonight, I will give everybody an email kind of reminding them what we talked about here and have those dates down in a document so you can refer back to them. Does that sound good?
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Hoban while he's here? Mr. Hoban, go
Yeah,
ahead.
if I could, there's also other, not only state programs in the pipeline, but local programs. And those are probably going to get announced while we're creating this. We want to make sure there's not overlap as those come out. And also, when you guys are sending suggestions, if you guys have links to other communities, that'll really help us out. Because for us, best practices are awesome. I don't mind being on the cutting edge and creating our own, but if you guys hear of something or even get something from your constituents, just forward the link. That'd be much appreciated.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Mr. Hoban? Thank you for coming. Thanks for all your hard work, and we look forward to talking to you again later on this next month. All right,
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's go back then to the agenda as printed. The E1A requests approval of an ordinance by McLean County Board amending the McLean County Code, specifically Chapter 108, Personnel Policies and Procedures, Section 34. I would entertain a motion. Member Woolrab, second. Member Robustelli. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to explain this to us?
Thank you, Chairman Soldner, and to the Finance Committee. I'm certain that you received my corrected version of my request to amend this portion of our personnel policies and procedures. And this is one of the ways that county administration and our entire, all of our departments have been working to pivot as we learn of new programs that are implemented by the federal government. And when we originally approached you and requested, and you absolutely agreed to modify these personnel policies, we entertained language inside the first change that now, because of the Family First Coronavirus Act, we need to change a bit. And so it's a small change, but it's important because staff have an opportunity to use what is called the FFCRA to deal with situations wherein they need to provide childcare. And so we are just asking that that portion that we originally added now be taken out because of this program. Also on your corrected version, it would be retroactive to September 1st, and then when it is signed, hopefully after your approvals on the day of county board, which is the 15th. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Member Barnett first.
So we need to make this change because federal law changed, right?
Correct.
So like if we hypothetically, whether this committee approves this or not, this change still has to be made, right, to comply with federal law.
This federal, this
And I'm not
act
suggesting at
exists.
all that we don't approve this. I'm just,
Well, there's two ways to look at this. The act exists and it is available for staff to use. We were being ultra thorough in our request to change it because the act exists no matter what. And we felt it was confusing to staff that we had it codified in one way, but the act says another. So we just feel that this is the best way to be clear and concise with our employees on how they should go about using their leave time and take advantage of the FFCRA. I hope I'm answering your question. The FFCRA exists no matter what, and we felt it confusing and contradictory that we had it codified in a different way.
yes. And the reason I guess I was asking, and maybe I should have stated this first, if there are changes that happen at the federal and the state level with employment law, that's, I mean, in my opinion, I mean, that's great that you bring it to the committee, but I'm also perfectly content trusting staff to maintain our personnel policy and make those appropriate updates without the committee having to vote on those updates every time they come through, is my personal feelings, I guess.
Thank you. I know that we have to because our personnel policies are codified.
Member Wolrab?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you, Ms. Rodriguez, please clarify for me whether this changes the paid status of the leave that people are taking, and if so, if it does, for how long and how much? You know, what's the difference if I take leave for COVID under the existing policy versus what we're asking to change it to?
This really is specific to childcare. And so the change has not to do with a person's status regarding COVID specifically, but whether or not they need to care for a child or a dependent that needs care. And so the manner in which we changed the policy originally now no longer coincides with this federal act. And so it really does well, kind of like the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, to preserve the employee's status with the county as its employer. It does it doesn't change their work status. It does, and I'd have to have my staff come up to refresh my memory if they know. I do believe there is a limit to this in weeks, just like FMLA. And I see someone approaching to save me from myself at this point. Ms. Taylor, would you like to come up and fill in anything that I have not expounded upon? Thank you.
Good evening, membership. So the FFCRA has two components. One is for sick leave and one is for childcare. And so by taking this portion out of our sick leave policy, we still allow all those federal benefits to our employees. They would be allowed the sick leave through FFCRA and would not have to take their benefit leave time. They would be allowed the childcare leave at 2/3 pay for up to 12 weeks and would not have to use their other vacation or sick leave time. And so this would preserve the leave time that we had originally set aside for as a benefit to employees, but also allows for the federal leave as well, and just cleans that up in our code, in our policies, so that it's not confusing to our personnel or our department heads who are trying to navigate through this time. I hope I answered that question.
Any other questions? If not, we're ready to vote. Okay, roll call vote. Chairman will vote.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Erickson,
Yes.
Member Woolrab,
Yes.
Member Robustelli,
Yes.
Member Beard,
Yes.
Member Barnett,
Yes.
Chairman Solder.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item, E1B, request approval of an ordinance by the McLean County Board amending the McLean County Code, Chapter 108, Personnel Policies and Procedures, Section 40. I would entertain a motion. Member Metzger, second member Wolrab. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to lead us on this?
I will, and I will do a leadership role and pass it off to Ms. Taylor because she is the expert on this one.
All right.
Good evening again. So we have submitted this for your consideration. As you know, we have spent a large amount of time at the nursing home in the last several months, and we have identified in going through different internal policies as well as policies within our code, certain sections that are incongruent and can conflict with other practices with our continuous operations, those departments who have continuous operations 24/7, 365 days a year. And so this resolution would make an amendment to our code to make those two departments who are not in collective bargaining agreements but are part of our continuous operations to have consistent policies and procedures that reflect their time off paid system. And so that system, the TOPS system, as it is called, was designed for those employees who have to be in charge of operations overnight, on weekends, and was really not designed for that administrative staff, those management staff or clerical staff who still have a Monday through Friday day shift. And so this cleans up, again, our code to be congruent across all departments and be equitable. And I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Mayor Walraven?
Thank you for that. I can understand why we would want this to be congruent with the other departments. My question is, how does this compare with the benefits, the time off benefits that nursing home staff get at other organizations with which we are in competition for staffing?
So I did not do a review of other nursing homes, but I did do an internal review of our 24/7 operations to show that this would be congruent with other administrative and leadership staff across our organization, and it is equal. The TOPS system provides for time off that is equal to our other employees. And so for those employees that are going to be shifted out of TOPS into a regular vacation and sick time policy, they will not be losing any time. It will be shifted, and we have a formula to do that so that they will receive all the time they've accrued.
Well, my concern here, as a previously an HR person myself, is whether or not this will in any way either enhance or hamper our ability to recruit people that we desperately need to staff our nursing home. Can you address that?
I can't speak to that specifically, but I can say that I feel that our benefit package is comparable to other organizations because we provide a pension package that other organizations do not provide. And so I feel that we are competitive because we offer other benefits in another fashion.
So I've asked that question about our pension, which is very, very nice benefit actually for people to have, but I think the response that I have gotten in the past concerning the desirability of a pension plan among a lot of the people who do staff our nursing home is that because they move from one organization to another with some frequency, is they don't really maybe they don't understand or they don't value the pension in the way that maybe you or I do or would. And that, people who are in some of the positions that are at the nursing home are really looking for a valuable paid time off program because they may have sick children or parents that they're tending or their own. And I think in order to ensure that we have a competitive stance, I mean, we really need to know, and I know it would end up being we'd be more than competitive because we're required to have that pension program. But in terms of time off, I think we really need to know where we stand in relation to other nursing homes in the community.
I do know that when we have interviewed staff at exit interviews, or we have discussed with staff what would make employment more desirable at the nursing home, the number one issue that comes up is rate of pay. I have never heard from any employee at the nursing home that it was because our time off package was lacking. It's always been rate of pay.
My question there would, how does what we're doing here change that picture? Is it making it better, more easy to access? I'm not 100% clear on that.
Well, the changes to take, so for clarification, this is just for management. This is only for 3 or 4 employees at the nursing home because it would be the administrative staff, the nursing home administrator, the director of nursing, and then the clerical staff that work the office. But for those staff, it would be equitable with across our organization.
Thank you. I think I must have misunderstood thinking that it was not for the administrative staff. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, ready to vote? Chairman will vote, roll call vote.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Erickson,
Yes.
Member Woolrab,
Yes.
Member Robustelli.
Yes.
Member Beard,
Yes.
Member Barnett,
Yes.
Chairman Solder.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, that passes. Next one's E1C, request approval of a resolution amending the funded full-time equivalent positions resolution for 2020, Fund 001, Department 0043, Information Technologies. I would entertain a motion. Member Metzger, second. Member Barnett. Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Chairman Soldner. I know that in your packet membership, you have a memorandum from Craig Nelson, our Director of Information Technologies, about this position. He is present in the room this evening if there are questions that I cannot answer, but ultimately, this is brought to you on behalf of our Justice Information Systems Work Group. There was a call from that group, a sort of directive for us to bring forth this request because the time is right for us to have someone in place to take on the project management and oversight of the activities that we need to accomplish to put in place this very large piece of work. And so we know that without that, we did talk actually among ourselves about absorbing some of this work. So we did explore other avenues, of course, but we just felt that the realistic answer was that even in our information technologies department, let alone in county administration, it would be a challenge for us to absorb this rather than bring forth to you the request that we amend the FTE line in information technologies and move forward and look for the right person for this project and for the long term in hopes that this person would stay on with us because they would be here during the build and this ongoing collaboration that's going to be required not only to build the system but to keep it functional over the course of time, having the right person in place that would know that history of the build and then how the ongoing sustainability of this system and their knowledge of all of the collaborative entities involved, the challenges that we assume will be experienced while we're building it will only bring a great addition long-term to our county staff. So that's why we're bringing it forward to you today.
Any questions? Member Metzger?
Did you do a salary analysis, not just internal competitiveness, but external?
We did examine some external salaries and, you know, a lot of those were from markets that some were local and some were not, the ones we received. But we also have policies that we have to follow. And so that is some of the scoring that we did internally when we have to create a new position. That's codified. And so we followed all of that together and came up with the salary that we mentioned in the memo.
Well, I have two things, one suggestion and one question, I guess. I question whether the salary is high enough for what you're wanting. I'm just knowing what I've seen in the organization I work in, and also ISU and Country and some of the others. I'm not sure the salary will be real competitive, but I wonder that. The other thing I wonder is if you really want to be so specific to justice information system, why would you not have an IT project manager? And then knowing, not that they wouldn't always be working on this, but it would allow you flexibility if you need somebody else to use the same grade, the same class, the same name. Just thinking ease of that. I just wonder if you don't want to expand that a little bit. But again, if you've done the competitive, if you believe that the salary is good, I'm fine. I'm looking at it and I'm wondering.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I have Mr. Nelson behind me if you want us to address at least the second part of what you suggested, but I'm certain we could regroup and talk about title and flexibility later. Sorry, Member Metzger.
That's okay. I mean, you don't have to change anything. These were just my view on this, and I don't know. Member Woolrab has had a lot of experience in job classifications and names and stuff. I don't know if she might think I'm off base. I don't know, but I just wonder if you don't want to be a little more expansive.
Thank you.
Member Beard, you have your hand up?
Yeah, and the administrator answered, Ms. Rodriguez answered one of my questions, which was about the idea of, hey, once this is live and implemented, that this position, we still foresee a need for this position to address. Another question, I guess it's just a general question with postings in general. Our policy is to allow for internal candidates to post and assess their viability ahead of external candidates. Knowing the importance of this, I'm just thinking about that, knowing the importance of this project, the time it takes to onboard someone new versus the time where you've got someone who's familiar with all the players. But I think from you've stated before, that's kind of our policy across the board with new postings.
Correct. I mean, it is always our priority to promote within. And at times, that is a viable option for us, but we do often have to post externally. We have some flexibility as in our codified policy as to the extent to which, how many days we post. We definitely will attempt to promote within. But when we can't, we will look outside the organization.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Member Barnett?
So, Administrator Rodriguez, you had mentioned that the salary was partially set based off of, looking at other like jobs in the area, but also based off of code. And I guess this is a big project. Obviously, right? And I kind of agree with Member Metzger. I was shocked at how low the salary is. $67,000, $70,000 is nothing to sneeze at. I don't want anyone to think I'm saying that, but I'm surprised that for a project manager of this scope, that the salary isn't higher than that. Is there something that we need to consider looking at in our code to allow for more play there when staff thinks it's appropriate for positions within the organization?
If I may, Member Barnett, I'm going to have our IT director, Mr. Nelson, address that.
Okay, and I only ask this because I want to make sure that we're getting you the person that you need in this job. We don't want to be selling you short in any way.
Yeah, and I think those are fair concerns. Here's kind of how that shaped out. We had looked at other markets, and our vendor had also provided some pricing in some of his prior work for us regarding project management costs. I myself am also a certified project manager, so I kind of handle the smaller ones that are within the department. The issue that we run into that I'm trying to work with here is to avoid much of a compression issue. So when you look at that salary range, of the 15 people, for instance, already in my department, there's probably only about 2 of them that are actually above that. And the rest are in there. And so given the current market situation, we're wondering, if we can't find the right person in this group, we're certainly not going to hire a person that we don't think can't do the job. So if we go through the process and we find ourselves going, we just don't have the right fit to tackle this size and scope of a project, I think we can always revisit that issue. But we're trying to make things that'll work for the long term within the organization without creating additional issues.
All right, Member Wolrab?
So I don't think we should be surprised that what Craig just said, that we would have an internal equity problem if we were to bump this one up significantly, or maybe even somewhat, I don't know. But I think we just heard that the salaries are a problem for hiring at our nursing home. And so I think we have an org-wide problem that we may not be able to solve because of perhaps our financial situation, but it's something that we should keep our eyes on, because I do think, and I think we all recognize that many of the positions at the county are maybe not where they need to be pay-wise. So I think my suggestion would be to let Craig and Ms. Rodriguez try to make this higher with the salary range and revisit it if we need to, keeping in mind that we should have an external salary survey someday and figure out where we stand that way.
All right, Member Metzger?
I think Member Beard was before me, so go ahead and let Member Beard go.
All right, Member Beard?
Thanks. Yeah, on this particular, I'm good with where it's at and trying to get the right person at that salary. I mean, we got to remember with the pension, that adds, I mean, the pension, if you get someone who came in on a tier 1 from another government job, I mean, that's a nice benefit. So, we've got to offer it. So if people aren't, if a new person doesn't really understand the benefit of a pension, that's a bigger problem than us. But in terms of like how we think about it, I see that base and then add that pension on top of it. That's a nice benefit that other employers aren't offering. So I'm comfortable with it. And if Craig, if you can't find someone and you come back to us a month, that's fine. But otherwise, I'm good.
All right, now Member Metzger?
The compression, I totally understand that. I agree with Member Wolrab on that. It is concerning, and as the overall organization, I think we've had this conversation before. So I just wouldn't be surprised if you won't have to revisit this. And I also, Member Beard, I totally agree with you on the pension is a wonderful benefit. Unfortunately, people who are younger generation, they don't see a benefit for a pension right now. And so even though there's that wonderful pension sitting there, sometimes it's the almighty paycheck that brings them into the fold. So we have to recognize the realities of our current workforce that would be potentially looking for this position also. But I totally agree with you, Member Beard, and also Member Wolrab.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Roll call vote, and I will vote.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Erickson,
Yes.
Member Woolrab,
Yes.
Member Robistelli,
Yes.
Member Beard,
Yes.
Member Barnett,
Yes.
Chairman Zollner.
Yes. All right, that is all that we have under the administrator as far as her action items. We've updated the 2A. You want to do an update on the county finances?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Soldner. As last month, I won't go on in too much detail because our treasurer gives us such a great snapshot of where we are at. But I will reiterate, as I did when I stepped up to the podium during our treasurer's report, that at the beginning of the pandemic, staff and I projected about a 15% loss on revenue. And at this point, we feel we're around the 7% area. And so I think that we are in a healthy place. We are, again, still in a very careful place with the directions we've been giving department heads on spending, especially for capital items. And we are being very diligent with all of the tracking of expenses when we have received, obviously, Cures Act dollars and CARES Act dollars. And there are different allotments to different departments. I think you will see all of that in much more detail in just a few days when we spend a lot of time together going over budgets. And as I'll remind you, we will have a recommended budget to the county board here very soon at the upcoming county board meeting. And then that commences the time that we spend together in committees going over each line and talking about what we've recommended and what you might see as just a thumbs up or a really healthy discussion about what might need to change. So again, you'll be hearing from me at this county board and receive a recommended budget. So at this point, I want to commend all of the department heads as well as county administration staff because we've been working hard to crunch numbers and we are actually still doing that at this point. I've been given a deadline. I think we have to go to the printer next Tuesday. So we're gonna have to get it done. And that's basically our update unless you have questions about that. Okay.
All right. Report on recent employment activities.
Yes, membership, you'll see that on page 29 of your packet, which is our most recent report. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, no questions then. We have payment of bills, and then I have a couple things under other business. So I have a letter from the auditor saying that she has reviewed the bills and certified they all comply with the McLean County Board adopted ordinances, resolutions, and policies. And she recommends the payment of the bills. Prepaid total is $1,114,523.04. And the fund total is also $1,114,523.04. I would entertain a motion to pay those bills. Member Woolrab, second. Member Beard, any questions or discussion? Roll call vote, chairman will vote.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Erickson,
Yes.
Member Woolrab,
Yes.
Member Robistelli,
Yes.
Member Beard,
Yes.
Member Barnett,
Yes.
Chairman Zollner.
Yes, motion carries. All right. Lastly, I have Assistant Civil State's Attorney, Mr. Chris Spano here, and we have a couple items we want to discuss dealing with the auditor. Mr. Spano, are you here? There he is.
Come.
He's been patiently waiting.
Yes, he has.
Good evening.
it's not the first time and probably won't be the last time that someone calls me Mr. Spano. The last S in my name feels abandoned. Sorry about that. It's okay. It's Chris Spanos. And it's nice to meet some of you. I don't think I've met before. Some of you I have. If you happen, I think Ms. Metzger was on the ZBA meeting last night when I interrupted and gave some legal advice to the ZBA board. And the chairman of the board apparently said, in confirming what I said, that he had consulted with his attorney, Samantha. So apparently Samantha's approval of what I said was acceptable to the ZBA. My point only being that I'm so new that many of you don't know who I am. So I am the new first civil assistant. And I understand, not having been present at your last committee meeting, that you had charged us with a question with respect to how we might improve or address some issues with respect to how we're getting certain financial tasks accomplished. So we have taken on a project, if you will, to review some of those relatively small tasks that turn into critical issues if they're not done promptly. And we, although I'm not prepared at this point to give you any specific recommendations, I do believe that within the next week or 10 days or so, we can do that. There are a couple things that we've already placed into motion. One of those is with respect to grants, and we're trying to get some additional access to maybe a couple more people so we have some redundancy, so that when things aren't getting done, maybe someone else can step up and get that done. But the point and real reason for me talking to you today is, having been present at my first full board meeting last month, I know some of you, and because of the remote nature, probably more than anything, are frustrated with the size and volume of things that we bring to stand up. So I need your counsel and advice on whether I can maybe present some of these things to you at your next stand up. I promise you that they won't be significant changes or things that should be a real problem. And if they are, then I would, and you do allow me to bring it to stand up, I would suggest then that you remove it from your stand up agenda and we defer until the next committee meeting to discuss it in more detail. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that at this point, then let me know, and we'll just bring it back to the next committee meeting and you can vote on it then in October. So I'm looking for guidance from you. Well, I guess from my point of view, I guess it depends again how complicated and how in-depth it is. Understand that, and my answer to you at this point is, we think that once we get through this, we'll be able to make some recommendations. I need to do some more research. We need to look at it a little more closely to make sure that what we're suggesting isn't in violation of any existing ordinance or statute. I don't believe that any of the things that we're going to, or we think we might recommend, will be, but I want an opportunity to look at that. And it may be by the time you get to stand up, I may come back to you and say, look, it's too complicated and I think it's something that needs to wait to the next committee meeting. I don't anticipate that. I anticipate that it will be relatively straightforward and something that could easily be considered during that stand-up. But again, that's your decision. And after listening to you discuss the length of the stand-up agenda at the last meeting, last thing I want to do is offend anybody by putting something on there that probably shouldn't be there. All right. So again, I seek your counsel. Member Wolrab?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And nice to meet you, Mr. Spanos.
Nice to meet you.
It's my thought on our stand-up committee that we really should go back to the way we used to do things, where they were reserved for just exceedingly mundane sorts of things that could not wait because of the timing of the meetings and the full committee the full board meeting, or something that's just, something so routine that there's virtually no conversation about it. Anything that has to do with a policy or might engender some questions, I someday we may go back to some kind of a stand-up, but I mean, that's why we have committee meetings. It gives us the time to have conversation and be thoughtful in advance, especially about things. And we just shouldn't, it's my opinion that we just shouldn't be having those kind of things done in the stand-up committee.
Can I respond? I'm sorry. Sure.
Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
respond? And it's not an argument. If you say wait, I'm going to wait. I really don't have a strong feeling one way or another. But the reason that I even suggest stand up is because some of these things actually may cost us money. Some of the delays are things that need to get addressed. Some of them are delays that apparently have been out there for a while. So you might say then if they've been out there for a while, why can't they wait till the next committee meeting? And that's for you to decide. I just think there are a handful of things after looking at them and not as closely as I need to, but starting to look at them that they may be things that you want to get done. And again, it will be a relatively brief discussion if we put it on stand up, if we put it on and you can decide then. Or if you decide not to put it on stand up, then we can have as long a conversation as you want to have at the next committee meeting. So.
I'll say that was information I didn't have when I made my comment, I suppose. I mean, if there's something that is costing us money, I mean, to me, that's a critical nature. And then we can decide in the stand-up whether we want to table it or not. So I'm anxious to hear what other people have to say.
Member Metzger, do you have your hand up?
Same thing. I initially said, I think we need to really have discussion, but if there are things that are essential, that are there's financial impact, I think there is a potential that maybe we need to at least look at it. And as Mr. Spanos identified, we could always table it or send it back to our October meeting. So I think it might be a good use of a stand-up.
Any other comments? Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate your input and
May I just make
yes.
one more quick comment? Just to be clear that if I get into this over the next 10 days or so, and I anticipate that it is going to be much more detailed than I thought, I will let you know that and won't recommend putting it on the stand-up agenda. But if once I get through this evaluation, I think it's something that's relatively routine and also pressing, then I will ask that it be put on stand-up, and then you can decide what you want to do with it, if that's acceptable to everyone.
sound good? Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. And we got to get a higher camera because I don't like this camera angle very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Right.
much.
Okay, does anyone have anything else? If not, Member Walrath?
I just want to thank administration and Julie, I think, for putting those bills, the detail of the bills out there for us to see. I think that was very important that not only us, but the public get a chance to review them. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.